Y'all, y'all, y'all ready for this? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Second half of the show here with Lee Cossey. Now, Lee, I know obviously we've talked a lot about Australian climbing, and as a climber, well, it didn't happen last year, and it probably won't happen this year. But being a climber, you travelled a lot, and you went to overseas, and when you went to Europe for that first or second time, what did you bring back to Australia that as far as developing or maybe passing on some knowledge that the overseas climbers were doing into the Australian scene?
I think probably, the first trip was like, for my sport climbing, definitely the most formative. I went, I think it might have been like 4 months or 5 months or something. Places like Sayus, Spain, Frankenura.
How good are those places? Wow.
Gorge de Tarn was another one. So like that trip, I think, like it was really good. Like, I'd come from a very insular and really quite supportive environment where everything felt quite known and comfortable. Even like all the areas that I went to almost felt like my home crags. So that was like the Blue Mountains, Nowra, Grampians and Rapleys. Like I felt very home at those places, and had gotten to a point where it's like I'd done a lot of the harder routes, like not necessarily the hardest, but pretty close to doing like a big chunk of things, like maybe 20 or more, like 31 to 32 sort of routes. And then went to Europe and probably didn't climb like 1 or 2 routes in that sort of bracket.
Yeah.
And I think that, but then obviously confronted by like, wow, there's just such a breadth of hard routes over there, far beyond what's available in Australia. And I think that really kind of helped me realize that like I guess how insular Australia had been. Yet it felt kind of like, oh yeah, this is my climbing world, and just seeing like, oh yeah, it's bigger and it's harder and there's more people and there's a big like kind of, it's a no big deal about certain grades and stuff. So I guess I came back from that trip quite, I was saying before like that I didn't have a particularly big mentality toward trying to find the hardest routes. But coming back from that trip, I definitely did. I think I remember writing down in my diary over there, like, a hit list, which basically is like the Bungonia project, because that hadn't been done yet. That was mechanical.
Yeah.
The Red project, Ben's project. It was like, it wasn't even called Fantastic Mr. Fox yet. And all the hard things, which there weren't that many, but it was like they were now in my sights. It's like, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And so coming back, actively looking for the new hardest lines around, and I bolted like a lot of things that have since become hard routes.
Yeah. Okay.
The known ones that are getting done, and I think it just shifted me into a probably more mature, like more of a not actively trying to be a leader, but it's probably like looking back, that mental shift is probably what made me be the person who's bolted a lot of the climbs that have now become either the hardest routes around or the ones that are getting done the most.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, thank you very much for opening up all of these routes. It's been brilliant, and it definitely, it's good to see, international climbers coming. Well, obviously last year didn't come, but international climbers coming into our country. I mean, like Alex Megos. I mean, he came and climbed with you guys, and and I know he did a few of your, the projects are up in the mountains, and someone like his visit, was that an eye opener? I mean, the guy's a weapon. But was that an eye opener, thinking that, man, this is possible? Yeah.
Most certainly, actually. And I'd say there'd be a few international travellers that had kind of been quite formative. Like one was Yuri Golob in 1998, 99. He was a Slovenian like weapon. He had just won a World Cup boulder comp, one of the really early World Cup boulder comps, and came out to Australia on his honeymoon with the prize money. So yeah, definitely him. That was like, and I remember him doing a one-arm pull-up on a crimp on this 45-degree woody. It's like, shit, that's what it is to be strong. Okay. The previous like, definition of strong was now like up here.
Yeah.
But certainly like other guys, climbed a bit with Ethan Pringle, but like Alex Migos was by far the person with whom I'd climbed that, I guess, just kind of shook it up for me a little bit. And it wasn't so much he was very, very strong, but I kind of knew he was strong. Like, and I was probably pretty old by that stage. I was like,
you're well past it, aren't you?
On Alex's last trip, which is probably the one that was like, probably the most motivating. Like I might have been 35 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, but just to see this kid come out and, he's just fucking pretty tough, actually. He is pretty tough, and he's willing to be really uncomfortable, and that's actually quite inspiring to watch. So
yeah. Oh, did I hear someone? Hey, Max. Is it bedtime, Max? Is it?
Yeah. We were just talking about Alex Migos and him being a bit of a crusher, smashing out, I don't know, I can't remember, maybe 7 routes 33 or above at Diamond Falls in one day. Little things like that. They just. I got the impression he never stopped when he was in Oz. He just climbed every day, it appeared. Yeah, it did seem like that. Yeah. So that was awesome, just to see someone come to like your home crag and just behave a little bit differently to everybody else who ever done it. And I certainly couldn't follow in his footsteps. So. Not good enough, but
not many can. No, to be honest, his fingers are just like weapons, aren't they? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen Adam Ondra climb in the flesh. I've seen the videos and stuff like that, but I've basically seen Alex, and I've seen him pull on those Frankenmuir holds. And you think, oh, man, how's he doing that? It's quite inspirational
definitely
to watch. Yeah. And obviously, when someone like Alex comes to town and it shows you guys like what's possible, and you get some energy from that. And is there a bit of a knock-on effect from that? Like,
well, yeah, it's hard to know how much of it's coincidence. But like for me, my form has probably depended a little bit more on like the things outside of climbing that are happening and how much space I have to kind of train the way that I want and things like that. Like, but yeah, a few weeks after that. That trip of Alex's, I kind of did my equal hardest route with Mr. Pink.
Oh, okay.
That's really cool. And I think for sure part of that is a result of kind of just that little burst of motivation, having come after a period of not doing as much climbing. Good night, mate. Good night.
Oh, good night there, Max. Thanks for joining us on FriXion Max TraXion. You've been a guest before, I think, Max.
that's kind of cool, because I think that, I mean, you mentioned, you weren't so old then, but like when you're young, you're inspired by older climbers who are maybe climbing at a higher grade. But it is a sport that is, whether it's young, old, like someone can inspire you. And if you at your age, can I be nice? Yeah, a lot of that inspiration is coming from people younger than you, but that's just as cool.
I think I actively try to seek that inspiration out, like just. I don't know. I think it's invaluable to be able to try to find ways to remain young and to create novelty in your environment so as to have to kind of adapt. Like, we think so much about like, how do I push my fingers to get stronger or my arms to get stronger? But like, it's so much about like if we want to close the gap between our physical ability and what we're actually doing, like that gap is mental, and I think that you've got to stay young so that you can continue to learn and grow.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's some good points there. I remember an old video many moons ago. Jerry Moffat. He was on it, and this is back. Called himself an old man. He's probably 35 then as well, and he just said, "Look, I can do these problems because I've got the mental willness, and also maybe at that time, back we're talking early 2000s, late 90s, he had the technique, not just the strength. So I mean, that goes a long way as well."
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, you know how to you know how to wield your strengths and things like that. And you know, like I guess in the competitions that I've entered in the last few years, I you know, most of the times I feel like I've kind of been able to kind of exercise that and kind of like hopefully climb to closer to my physical potential because of that nous, I guess. But,
yeah, the smarts, yeah.
yeah.
Are you saying the other competitors aren't so smart there, Lee? No.
No, I definitely not. But I think often competitions reward, like, you know, they obviously reward performance across a handful of different problems, and those problems will usually entail, you know, several different styles within each problem. And, you know, so if you can tick all the boxes, and, you know, you're basically not being brought down by a weak link, hopefully much.
Yeah, it's the overall climate. So I suppose
well, you're at that point where you're still wanting to push your limits. You know, we talked off air earlier about, you know, ticking some goals, you know, in your 30s, and but you're also investing in those coming through. Like, that's that natural transition that you're, you know, what you do in the next 5 years or so will have a big influence on Australian climbing, which is, you know, that's still really cool.
Yeah.
And this year, obviously, I think you're you're involved with our first male Olympian, Tom O'Halloran. So you know, that's like coaching an Olympian. You probably wouldn't have thought that when you're 15 bouncing around at the lower blueies.
No, I don't think so. And that's been a really good opportunity to kind of like, again, be pushed into a situation where, like, I'm very new to it and quite willing to be, you know, I guess naive and young with it. And, you know, my learning curve in that has kind of accelerated a lot. Like, I've always done a fair bit of coaching, but it's more been in the context of training and programming and working on physical stuff with people. And then, but I guess more and more, like, especially working with the teenage kids, I kind of like have started to realize how much it is about setting up, you know, high performance cultures.
Okay, yeah.
And then also too, how to kind of like, how to curate that on an individual level. And that's really what I think the biggest difference between like training someone is and coaching somebody. You're basically trying to make that person better in every possible sense. Ideally, like a psychological weapon.
Yeah.
And that's so much different to becoming like a physical weapon.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, I mean, Tom is definitely at the top of his game. He's like, hats off to him. He's like, you know, without, you know, flying his flag too high, but I guess he's definitely Australia's best male climber at the moment by a long shot. Would you agree with that, Lee? And
look, yeah, like I'm definitely one that's always tries to be quite measured in the things that I say. But I would say, you know, you put the guy on lead on rock, and, you know, there's no one within 2 grades of him.
Yeah.
You know, part of that is that we don't have a lot of people at that kind of level just below him, but also too, we haven't got the roots for him to do that in the next grade up.
Oh, okay. And
yeah, so I think there is literally a 2 grade gap there, and he like I was saying before about closing that gap between the physical and the actual performance. He's doing that really well with a very, very high performance machine, and he's closing that gap well.
Yeah, no,
I think bread and butter, definitely the on rock lead climbing.
Yeah.
Growing into the competition space, like being a mature climber that he's able to do that very, very fast. And and that's been inspiring to watch him allow himself to be vulnerable enough to be willing to grow as a competition climber. That's been awesome.
Well, when we had both Toms after the Oceanas on the podcast, but he talked there about his struggles with the mental side of it, like having to focus on indoor climbing when normally he's got projects, he's got things he wants to do.
He wants to be at the crag. Yeah, I think the thing that impressed me the most, and maybe you had a bit of an influence in this, Lee, in his coaching, is how fast he got on the speed. It was a discipline he hated. Yeah. And I thought that was going to be his weakness. I thought, oh heck, I feel sorry for all these guys in this competition because They hate climbing speed. And for example, Tom Farrell was, he's about the only one. He hates it, but he's good at it.
Yeah.
And you sort of think, Tom O'Halloran is just going to struggle at that. And you'd hate for someone to miss out on a position just due to that discipline. But I mean, he worked at it and he nailed it. Yeah.
And I think that's a really good example of his maturity and willingness to kind of like acknowledge that that shortfall that he had in experience and potentially some of the physical stuff. And he took it seriously, and he didn't half-ass go about trying to make the Olympics.
No.
And the thing that I really wanted to see in that competition was that like we have at least a few people in that comp who are 100% like all in on trying to make it, and that's what we did get to see actually. I think.
Yeah, I'd have to say that everyone, you got the impression in that final they were there to make that position. And it was great comp, both the men and the women. It was probably one of the best comps I've seen in a long time. Just you could see that pure determination on everyone, which was pretty fantastic. So just sort of turning back there to the future of climbing in Australia. I mean, obviously we've got Tom. He's at the cutting edge at the moment. Where do you see it going? Is there some kiddies in the wings that are like following in your footsteps? And what's the hardest route currently in Australia? It's 36. Are we talking 36? Is this right?
We're
35? 35
at the moment, and I think we're currently sitting on 4 of them. Baker's Dozen, Kitten Mittens, Shiner Bauman, Red Project.
Red Project, yeah.
So about 4.
Do you think there's a 9A plus there amongst those, and you guys have just undercooked it?
Well, look, I haven't done any of them, but I don't think that any of those are 9A plus.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I haven't been on all of them, but I guess I feel familiar enough with the people who have been on it with their form and their track record, but I kind of would put money on Tom lapping. He could potentially lap 2 or 3 this weekend if I was to offer enough reward.
Okay.
No, so I guess where do I see it going? We're in a really, really unique position in Australia. Like obviously rock-wise, we've got just a different type of rock than what probably the rest of the world is dealing with. And there's a big period in time where we basically had 20 years or so where there was the hardest routes of the world were only on limestone. And obviously that changed with Flathanger, and there's a few hard routes on granite now. I think that some of this, like the morphing of bouldering into sport climbing, and even to like the physical development of the guys at the top end becoming a little bit more round, in part, like a big part due to bouldering, but also in part to potentially the combined format, has kind of like pushed people to become a bit more diverse in the way.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Seeing a bit more acceptance of hard sport routes that kind of maybe resemble boulders a little bit more. And that will be a little bit better for Australia. I think it's going to be easier for us to have some relevance in global climbing. For as long as because our rock type doesn't have it doesn't create these very, very consistently featured steep caves which become like all about forearm resistance.
It's more on and off, isn't it? Like with Australian climbing, it's a real boulder sort of focus.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think all we really need is a little bit more of like that return to after post-COVID globalism,
globalization
in a way, so that we can get a bit more of that cross-pollination, and a couple of the strong guys in Australia can go, oh, okay, well, this was 9B plus, or this is what a V16 looks like. I'm going to go back to Australia, work something that's a V16 that might actually be a couple of draws up a route, and before too long we might be looking at having something that's within those top couple of grades of global climbing.
Okay, cool.
But I think if we are really fixated on kind of the limestone model, I think we're always going to feel like we're a bit hard done by because we just don't have
haven't got the rock. I mean,
crags.
I mean, you've got Bungonia, but that's different, isn't it? It's not like a traditional European.
Yeah. It's way more like a short bouldery route than a big long limestone resistance vest.
Yeah. There's no Oleanas or that kind of thing kicking around the corner in Australia.
Not that we yet know about, and if we did, I'd say it would probably look a little bit more like Red River Gorge or something like that, because it could be possible to find a cave that's quite consistent on sandstone, but we're probably not going to see it on limestone in Australia.
No. I think there's some nice limestone around the place, but I think a lot of it's in national parks, isn't it? And so obviously
we're a little
can't climb there
in Australia, in that it's like these cave environments are generally a no-go for climbing.
Yeah. Now, there's some nice. In Kosciuszko, I've seen some pictures of some pretty awesome looking rock.
Looks quite good too.
Exactly. Yeah, I forgot about Jadol. Yeah, every time I go there, I go, oh my Lord, geez, what's going on here? We can have some great routes.
Margaret River area, like region in Perth.
Exactly. Yeah, Bob's Hollow and yeah, no.
There's some that don't have climbing, and they look quite amazing. Like yeah. But yeah, I think that bouldery sport routes, bouldering I think still has a future in Australia, despite the pretty heavy the current closures in the Grampians. We've just got to, I think the Grampians will probably still be one of the major kind of hotspots for bouldering in Australia. Yep. But we've just got to get to a point where we can kind of find a balance there.
Yeah. And it sounds all positive, but from talking to a lot of people there's going to be some good dialogue amongst everyone down there. So that's a good positive thing that's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess one thing I used to not think was I used to kind of almost feel we're down here in Australia and it's a bit of a we're kind of hanging to go away to be able to be part of the scene. But I think it's actually more and more. I think it's a real privilege that we get to go to, quite pristine, beautiful crags that feel pretty wild, and we're there with people we want to be there with, even if we don't know them. We're like, oh, this is cool. There's people at the crag and they're like-minded. Whereas when you go to a busy overseas crag, you kind of I wish it was quiet.
Yeah.
So no, I think I definitely yearn less for overseas travel now that I can kind of appreciate that we have everything and more in Australia than I.
Yeah, until those borders open, and then you'll be like, oh, wait a minute, that passport. Oh,
yeah, there's definitely travel to be done, but I think very, very, very grateful to be an Australian.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
I think we're all pretty grateful at the moment with this whole thing that's going down. So
it's never a criticism of Australian climbing that people want to go to North America or Europe, is it? It's just different rock, different style crags, different culture.
I think exposure to those those little subcultures that's pretty powerful stuff. You were talking about before the impact that travelers have had on me and overseas trips have had. They're a big part of what allows you to feel like you can grow as an athlete and as an individual generally.
Well, here's a question for you, unscripted. So let's imagine Tom, he goes well at the Olympics, and the Australian Institute of Sport wants to set up a, for cycling, they have a racy in northern Italy as a base for young cyclists. Where do you set it up for young climbers? Arco somewhere. Where?
Well, I guess the thing is cycling happens in the same, it happens in the mountains, it happens on the streets, on the roads, on that infrastructure. Whereas competitive sport climbing happens on artificial walls. And so if you were to do that, you'd probably do it in the place that's got the best artificial walls, which I very much hope for that to be in Australia in the years to come. And I think we've got a few little hurdles to overcome, and this is partly the result of being a very, very geographically diverse, spread out country.
Yeah.
If we can find a hub and create a place to go that's a little bit the microcosm of Tokyo with its many, many gyms that have an amazing indoor boulder culture, or somewhere like the Feta Center in Innsbruck.
Yeah.
We can create that culture, but I do think at the moment for it to look like that, it's a generation off at least. And I say that because what makes Innsbruck is the fact that the guys who are currently on top were born into a city that had that infrastructure.
Yeah.
Basic. And so like, we're probably 15, 20 years off because we need the physical facilities and the culture that happens in those places to then have the youth that's actually seeing it, living it, and becoming the product of it. Now I know it probably sounds a little bit harsh, and I'm sure that we're going to see real leaders between now and then who do perform really well and set the scene. But to truly have that culture, it probably requires a bit of time.
Might need a Jerry Ryan or a Dina Reinhardt to get behind it too.
It would help, and yeah. So if Tom does stand on the top of the podium, I reckon Australians, being Australians, will throw some money at a sport that brings gold.
Yeah, and the spin-off is that to all forms of climbing. So let's hope. Exciting times.
I think you both raise a good point there, and maybe I think climbing itself was going to gravitate a little bit towards the Blue Mountains, just with some of the the uncertainty of the crags down south, and with that, obviously, I mean we've got some good indoor facilities, not like what we're seeing in Innsbruck, for example. But do you think, like in Innsbruck, the beauty of Innsbruck is you've got where it's located, crags are everywhere. So you can, and the gyms are there as well. So you've got that diversity. Because what I was going to say, the leading competition climbers are also the leading outdoor climbers, as what we can see with Tom in Australia. Do you think that that's an important thing for the sport that we develop?
It definitely is. Innsbruck has I guess one of his big benefits of being like, it's a desirable place to live for leaders in the sport, like 30 years ago. Okay. So they do go to Innsbruck, but Innsbruck also has a large population, and so that's kind of like a really important factor.
For sure. Yeah.
The tricky thing with the Blue Mountains is that the Blue Mountains community of sub 100,000 people is going to have to be highly the hard climber is going to have to be highly overrepresented for that 100,000 people. So it's going to be tricky. I think it can happen, and I don't think we need an immense gene pool to get climbers who can perform well, because as you've seen, there's high level climbers that have vastly different physical traits. That's going to probably allow us to actually get performers who have really, really differing body types. But I think the key element is actually making sure that we've got the culture to shape those people and their brains and their bodies from a young age.
Yeah.
Do have pretty big diversity.
You're right. Like Europe has got that, hasn't it? It's in the blood. Your Col Mont Blanc, or their grandfathers or their grandmothers have been on the top of these massive mountains, and then the great grandchildren are out there climbing and they're pushing it. Yeah. And that's a fantastic thing. But I think maybe Blackheath is similar to someone like Boulder in Colorado. It's a small community, but it's a very rich community in
it drags a lot of people in, and that's probably where it just comes from. So I guess population isn't the be all and end all, but yeah, I'd be fucking psyched if the Blue Mountains was able to create a scene like that. And also to somehow have the facility as well. That definitely is requiring of probably a government level, stimulus to make it work, because I've crunched the numbers on opening a big facility in the Blue Mountains, and it's a big risk. You're riding on a whole lot of luck, and there's not a lot of precedent for a big climbing facility in a semi-rural place with a population base that's spread out on a single road over.
Yeah, that's right. You got that road corridor, and not to be disrespectful to the climbers up there. They're very frivolous with their money. So you want to capture the younger market, don't you? The ones that probably live in the city a bit more, that don't mind paying $20 to go climbing.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing. If you're making it a commercial problem, then you're always going to have a commercial solution. And that's probably the problem with it. You're talking about the cycling institutes and the facilities over in Italy, that's not a commercial solution. That's something that's kind of the government has deemed valuable enough to dump money into, because it deems cycling as a sport really worthy. And so if we can get that same sort of notoriety and value of climbing, that.
Cycling became a bit cool amongst politicians there too. So we need to get some politicians out climbing.
Your responsibility to get all those people in Canberra on the walls.
Yeah. I'm picturing a few of them. I don't see it.
No, I think they get on the grog a bit too much for that kind of activity. But yeah, no, cool.
But no, I do think the Blue Mountains would be an amazing place for it, because, like Innsbruck, it attracts the people who are real lifers for the sport and the human resources that are able to create, training kind of stuff. Obviously it'd be easy enough to attract high quality setters, coaches, and that sort of thing. So yeah.
I mean, obviously, Jakey B, he moved up there. He's from Tasmania. You've got even
Vince. Tom's down from Queensland.
Yeah, Tom's from Queensland. Vince is Tasmasian as well. You've got Mr. Rumbler. He's a Victorian as well. So yeah, they've got a whole bunch of people.
There is. I feel like I could probably list like easily 50 or more people that have moved there.
Yeah.
Andrea.
Yeah, she's Melbourne girl, isn't she? Yeah. Now, before we go any further, is Max going to be the first Australian to climb 9C?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Oh, okay. He might hate this one. He might.
I'd say at the moment he's looking like he'll be a shift boss at an open cut mine in WA. He likes his diggers and his...
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he likes his...
Yeah, there's probably diggers in this room, but yeah. Look, I guess I guess my thing with having a son or a child in general is just obviously wanting, like you guys, wanting to allow them to discover what they're curious about and have a really good time and have a positive, enriching, diverse life and be a human that they feel proud of, and obviously that sort of stuff. But yeah, the back of my mind, I think I would really, really love to be able to go and climb El Cap together.
Oh, yeah.
Do that sort of thing. Yeah, that would be fantastic to be able to share those experiences in those places. But if it's not him, it's not him. That's just he's his own person.
Yeah, no, that's cool. No, that's great to hear that. Cool. Oh, we can talk all night, all day, or all afternoon, depends on what time you're listening to this podcast. So Lee, you're a fantastic guest. We have to get you back for sure. I've just got a couple of more questions to ask, and I think Aaron's going to break into the special year of 1982.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, this is obviously climbing idols. Who is your climbing idol? You can only name two.
Yeah, so it probably changed over the years. These days I take a huge amount from both Alex Migos and Adam Ondra, and that's maybe a little bit a bit boring, but
no, fully understand that.
Yeah, those guys are both massively invested and I take a lot from those guys.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right. And obviously your favorite rock climb, and I mean there's a lot out there. I know it's pretty hard to name one.
Yep. I really thoroughly enjoyed one of the routes that Jake and I did in Frenchman's Cap called De Gaulle's Nose.
Oh, okay.
It was a Carrigan and Moorhead route, and that whole day pretty much summed up a side of climbing that for me, that type of climbing, a day doesn't get much better than that. And so that was outrageously good.
Cool. Yeah. I think
and just the perfect experience.
Yeah.
And then sport route. I think I think I have to go pretty down the line, with something like Groove Train or one of those on side, like Trouser Snake, Trouser Snake, Groove Train, Sneaky Snake, like those things just epitomize like what is beautiful about like hard sport climbing.
Yeah, well, it's just like that beautiful, that amphitheater rock,
Yeah,
that golden wall, and it's just you and 70 meters of wall above you, and you're going
you've
for
got
it.
to be, you've really, when you send those things, or for me, when I did all of those things, there was a level of mastery over every aspect of my climbing, and
Yep.
down to your training, logistics on the trip, your ability to kind of grit in there and actually try really, really hard and well in that moment. And you don't get a lot of shots on those things, so it's always high pressure. And I love that pressure. And yeah, so those routes, love them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I can reflect on those special moments. Now, your favourite shoe of choice? What's your weapon of choice these days? I know you're sporting that brand called La Sportiva. Have you got any favourites that have helped you on the journey, or have you got some new ones?
So I have a couple here, but not the shoes that I was going to show you. But so I have certain go-to shoes for certain things, and that would be, hands down. I wouldn't like to go to a desert island without a Miura.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a well-respected shoe. Yeah,
nothing really performs on the kind of just overhanging, really edgy stuff quite as well. Occasionally, I like the Velcro Miura because it's just that little bit more toey. So if you do get a little bit steep or the hole's a little bit in cut, but you still need to really put some force through the shoe and not have it deform.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like I'm not super heavy, but I'm usually just hovering around the 70 kg mark.
Yeah.
And when you get on a low angle wall on one foot on a very, very small foothold, how much deformation you get in the rubber and the shoe matters.
Yeah, and you're looking for like just a firmer platform to push off of. Is that?
It just doesn't mush away under you, so you can just get right up on it.
Yeah.
But I don't climb in them much because those routes, I don't need that level of performance and discomfort.
What do you say? They're a bit tight for you, are they?
Yeah, they're tight. Probably like I train in my Futuras, love my Futuras, and I really like that. I like what Sportiva did in terms of going down that no edge technology route, because you do just use your feet a little bit more intuitively.
Yep.
You're not trying to exploit a sharp edge, but you're actually pasting and you're feeling your way around things. And so it is a little bit more like a barefoot experience. But people are often flabbergasted when I say they don't do anything, they don't perform well. They're not a good performance shoe, but they are great to train in because of how you use them.
Yeah. I've noticed that climbing in them, you can just put your feet anywhere, and you can really mold to the surface that you're climbing on. Yeah.
And then when you do go back to something that's a little bit more structured, you're actually willing to use it in ways that you wouldn't have previously. So I'll put a Miura on or something a bit harder, and I'll still cup with it and paste with it and let myself be a little bit more dynamic than I probably historically would, where I'd be, feel like I'm front pointing on crampons.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And that makes perfect sense. Yeah, you sort of like you feel your way with the no edge, my experience. And then when you do need to probably climb on a you need a little bit more sort of stiffness. Yeah, you do climb a little bit differently. Yeah, cool.
So then I've got Solution, and Solution is probably what I wear most of the time on my boots. It does a lot of things really, really well. And then just recently, the software has changed. I was always like, between the kind of the Python basically the Python. But then these guys,
the theories, very nice shoe, aren't they?
And I consider I've got two of these. A 38.5 is for towing down on steep walls, and the 39 is much better for like toe hitting and that responsiveness that I was sort of describing with the Futura.
So because your foot can bend in it a little bit more. Yeah,
there's still a lot of benefit in having these as a hyper aggressive but sensitive shoe on a steep wall, and obviously to all of those shoes I mentioned, they all have a heel that's exceedingly good, and that's probably one thing that I'm sometimes critical of with some of like the other models I've tried. The heel doesn't doesn't kind of perform the way that I want.
Yep.
You know, so occasionally I'll kind of shave bits off to fit a root or problem. But yeah, they all have a heel that's pretty bomb-proof and lasts well.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I know. They've developed their shoe range of late, and some are a bit thinner now, and some are a bit wider. So I mean, we've all got different hoofs down there. So it's a bit of a complex sort of thing to go with. But I know
also you learn your own way of using a particular shoe. Yeah, like I said before, I use a Miura differently now than what I did 15 years ago, but it was still a shoe then. It's crazy that the Miura is still like my favorite performance shoe for certain types of climbing. Yeah.
Well, that fella Adam Ondra seems to wear them on most of the routes he does as well. So they must be doing all right. Yeah. Cool. And then my final question before we break into 1982, what is your favorite all-time climbing photo? Like the one that you just looked at and thought, that's cool. I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Unscripted.
Yeah, I was going to say, it wasn't a setup, was it? You don't got to flash something on the screen. Or...
No, I don't even think I would know where to find one of these photos, but I think it would have to probably be something like, early Diamond Falls, Garth on Mr. Carpetburn or something like that.
Oh, when he's a little bit, he looks a bit sunburnt on top.
Probably. Yeah. I know the one. Yeah. So pasty.
Yeah.
Burnt. Pair of like the
UFOs. I think he was wearing, wasn't he? At the time.
Worst shoe in the world, but a lot of people want to buy them
after that picture. Yeah. I think I might be able to find that photograph. So there we go.
Totally load that up. So that was super formative, and I think that's the sort of thing where you look at it 20 plus years later and it still sends a shiver up your spine. What it means.
No.
That's also cool that you're now joining the team, his son. So that's kind of like,
isn't that cool?
That's really cool.
Bodie's an awesome kid, and I love the way that he quietly plugs away at his climbing and gets it done.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good to see. Because I mean, I climbed with Garth back in the day, and like he just when he went to Europe and he came back, like, geez, man, you climbed pretty well. I think catching up with Garth just over the last few months, it's good to see that Bodie's coming up, and you sort of see a little bit of Bodie and his dad, like there's that similarity. But it'd be awesome to see like him.
I think it's probably a really good thing, and I think in Australian culture, in Australian sport, we probably. Garth always had a certain like amount of there's an element of kind of like confidence and almost like bravado and like he wasn't there to fuck around, like he wanted to climb hard, and there was a real edge to his motivation, and even to this day the guy cares about how good he is, and a lot of Australians are out there to have a good time, and that's a big part of what made Garth good. So
I've definitely I've short roped him a few times, and I heard a few expletives come down the cliff. I'm it's tangled. So when he was on, he wanted to, I think for me it was his on-sighting. That's what I found that was Garthing. He just wanted to on-sight everything.
Definitely, and a real like willingness to have that level of intensity. And that is definitely what helps shape. You got to give a shit about what you're about to do. And there's definitely he cared.
No.
Not a nonchalant like, I'll go up and give it a go. It's like, no, I am gonna make a fucking mockery of everyone else.
Yeah, I'm gonna send this thing. Yeah, I mean, you saw it on. I mean, there was a little bit of internal personal battles there between him and Saxon, and anything that Saxon did, got to do it better. And that was it was probably healthy rivalry at the time when he did Better Than Life. Better Than Life. I mean, I'd have loved to have seen that go down. And
I'm sure there's a like, and it's like a lot of people, like even Jordan sort of said this in an interview, like in his Hall of Fame induction video. He was saying, something along the lines of like, no one knew that he'd put a mark on them. He'd basically said that, in his own head, I'm gonna be better than you. I'm gonna be better than you. I'm gonna be better than you. Like his roommate, like other high profile basketballers, and like, there's that edge that I think some of those guys who do reach that really high level, they have that, you just can't buy it, and you can't train it on the wall. You've got to want it.
It's got to be.
Yeah, I read.
It's got to be in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read Jordan, like he used, stuff that happened against him as motivation, and if someone hadn't done anything to him, he would just make it up in his mind so that he could like have a reason to dunk over the top of them or whatever. Yeah, incredible mindset. So.
Yeah.
Cool. It's been a long chat, but a good one. Thanks, Lee.
Yeah.
It's been great chatting there.
Great.
So we'll wrap it up. Aaron, what the heck happened in '82? And obviously,
Well, 82. Like we've done this segment. Matt normally does it. He handballed it to me this week, so I'll keep it brief. But it's noticed 82. You hit 40 next year, but your birth sort of coincides with sport climbing and the first Las Sportivas sport climbing shoes and those sorts of things, which is kind of pretty cool, really. Oh, there we go.
Oh, you can't see it, can you? I might have to bring it closer.
Yeah, awesome. Mariaka. That was
1982.
cool.
You should have had someone, buy you your first set of those 15 years before.
I have got a calculator. You guys have my calculators, actually.
We do. Yeah, they're over there. Yeah, I've still got it.
But I was 10 in 1982, and so we have we talked about MJ before, but that was Michael Jordan. But Michael Jackson,
Michael
Thriller
Jackson
came out. I think it's still the biggest selling album of all time, pro rata.
Wow.
And then I was never a fan of this, but it was the biggest movie of 1982. Matt Adams, can I test you with that? What do you reckon it was?
I don't know. Give us a clue. Who's in it?
Maybe Phone Home.
Oh, E.T. I did read that.
I've only ever watched it once. Didn't rate it. For me as a kid, not that my sporting career went that far, but I was super inspired by the 1982 Commonwealth Games. So Rob De Castella winning the marathon, I thought, that's me. That's what I want to do. Didn't pan out. It was a super cool time growing up in Brisbane. The 80s and Commonwealth Games. So it's kind of funny to think maybe Olympic Games in Brisbane 2032. So I'll be I think that's So 1982. I don't know if that definitely makes me feel old, but it's you've got a lot of climbing ahead of you, Lee, and it's great to support you on that journey, and plenty more to come. Watch this space.
Yeah, no, cool. Now, for all the listeners and the viewers out there, just a bit of a disclaimer, Lee. Are you you're not a chemist or an engineer or anything like that?
I am not. No, I definitely don't claim to be.
Yeah, all right. So we'll leave you with this footage of a route that you were climbing with your brother, Ben. Begurk, I believe it's called. And it's brought to you again by Rumbler. It's a little North-based video. And it's explaining why a bolt broke. And I think what was Ben's terms, he goes, bolt pops, keep going. That's the name of the game. And the other quote was, name one person that could keep going on that knew after that, outside me and you. And I think he was referring to Brecken, the cameraman out there, as you tootled up the next route on these dodgy bolts. All right. Cool. Thanks, Lee. Great to chat to you. We'll get you back on where you can talk about all your traditional exploits, I reckon. I'm sure the fans who want to understand. Great chatting to you. All the best with that, and obviously we will connect, and it'd be great to hear on how Tokyo is going, and definitely catch up during the year with Tom's journey to Tokyo and your journey as well through that. That'd be great to get some sort of interaction and some commentary on where the sport's going. Cool. Yeah, all right.
Awesome.
Thanks very much, Lee. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah,
and we'll join you next time on FriXion Max TraXion. Cheers.
See you guys. Have a good one.
See you guys. Yes.
made it.
Finally got across the river. It's nice to have chalk on my hands, even though my chalk bag's a bit wet. The river crossing, not ideal. Hey Siri, if I don't make it out alive, thanks for everything. And I know that I'm going to get pumped on the first one, destroyed on the second one, scared and have 0 left on the third one, foul emptyingly exposed. And that's why Lee's going.
The middle pitch, that's the business. But it's like any hard multi-pitch, the whole crux of it is like putting it all together. And like Ben and I want to try and send it on the same day. We're not really going to count it as being done unless we both send it on the same day. So that adds another another element of like coordination.
Challenge, timing. That's what what's his name? Pepe Gonzalez? Speedy Gonzalez says when he's climbing at Teradets, Arriba. Or if Jakey B was reincarnated into a Mexican mouse. Arriba. So the plan today was to do everything we were planning to do yesterday and today, with far less time. In half a day. The plan was 2 days work in half a day. I've just put Lee back on belay. I don't know exactly what he's doing, but apparently Lee called out pretty speedily, stop, bolt broke somehow, and they're stainless steel roll bolts. So exactly how it broke, I don't know, but what he's doing now is actually presumably to tie you off to the same kind of bolt that apparently broke. Give it a drag. Like, yeah, what the
Yeah, stainless steel bolt. It's like a black little stud left in there. No, the bolt itself failed, but like
they're all the same bolts though.
they're all the same bolt. Yeah, but the bolt failed probably because of the electrochemical reaction between the different types of stainless. So I think it's called stress corrosion cracking.
I call it bolt breaking. Bullshit.
Anyway,
Pitches up, yeah.
what we have got is we have a drill today. So we're going to replace this bolt
With 5 others.
well, 2 really nice ones, and then remove this and see if we can take a sample of it.
Bolts pop, keep going. Name of the game.
Have you ever had that happen?
No, never. Like it's just like it's like name a person that would keep going, that we know that would keep going with that outside of me and Lee and you. Can't do it, can you?